Welcome to Electrified. It's your host, Dylan Loomis. As it turns out, I believe that I was wrong about the Cybercab. After that September 15th prediction for when a Cybercab will hit the market, after that video, something just didn't feel right, so I got back to research and found some new things. And I have to say, part of me is glad that it happened because by the end of this video, I think it'll end up being pretty educational for exactly what's going on. But today I will be officially adjusting my expectation for when the Cybercab will hit the Robotaxi network. But most importantly, I want to share my new rationale for why. So we'll get there, but just to quickly tap into what's going on in Dallas, Spencer said the worst Robotaxi move he's seen in recent months. The car tried to turn onto a street, it got stuck, and just sat there blocking the road for almost a minute. Now look, as Spencer said, and as we know, most of the Robotaxi rides are great. And now, I wouldn't say this situation was particularly dangerous, but what we have to understand is that if you have things like this happening at a certain proportion of overall rides, when you scale, the number of times we see instances like this is of course going to scale with more cars in the fleet. And Reuters just went to test the Robotaxi network, also in Dallas, and they said the service was plagued by long wait times and sometimes no availability at all. The drop-off spots and some rides were far away from the rider's destination. For 30 minutes, the reporter tried booking a ride but would get high demand or service unavailable. And after 36 minutes of trying, one became available and the wait time was 19 minutes. So of course, this should be expected with only a handful of vehicles in operation. And with such narrow geofences right now, it really is more of a beta than a full-blown active service. And as you'll see in this video, Tesla support had to get involved and they're certainly still dealing with some navigation issues.
At one point, the car seems to get confused by a do not enter sign near a freeway off-ramp.
You missed a turn again.
Instead of taking a left turn, it kept on going straight. Then it made right turns to double back again and again in a circle. Eventually, I had to call Tesla support just to get their help in making that left turn.
It did.
Okay. Yeah, it looks like it made that left turn for you. Is there anything else I can help you with today?
On another ride, what should have been 20-minute drive to City Hall took nearly 2 hours. I don't actually know where I am, and I asked Tesla support, why isn't the car going to the City Hall, my destination? And they said they don't actually serve the area around the City Hall yet, mainly because they're still testing.
And in the Reuters report, even the Tesla agent said that we're still in the beta version. And as we know, even in Austin, customers will have to wait north of 30 minutes and sometimes they're not able to get a ride at all. And Reuters said Tesla's operating about 50 vehicles in Austin, according to a recent slideshow presentation by Austin officials, which compares to more than 250 Waymos in Austin. And lastly, a reporter in Austin spent 3 weeks in April tracking wait times for Tesla's Robotaxis. The wait times were over 15 minutes about half the time, and were at least 25 minutes more than 25% of the time, and then 27% of the time no cars were available at all. So yes, it's Reuters and they tend to paint with a negative brush when it comes to Tesla, but in this case I actually think it's likely a realistic representation of the true experience of non-Tesla fans. So given all of that, tracking Tesla's Robotaxi progress is the thing when it comes to Tesla right now. So I want to share something I've been working on, and just bear with me, it's only V1 and we know what Elon says, things usually don't get good until V3, but I really have had a blast putting it together and think it can be useful even in its current form. I told you guys I was vibe coding another dashboard, this one to track Tesla's Robotaxi progress. I'm calling it Tesla Autonomy. So I want to quickly just walk you through some of the features so you know what you're looking at and how to navigate it, because you will be able to visit this dashboard, save it for yourself, and view the updated information anytime. For the map section, you can zoom in and out, so if you want to see more detail, you can click on each active city to get a pop-up dashboard with more information. The Bay Area is this orange color because it's still supervised and not technically a Robotaxi service, but you can still click to pull up more information. As we've covered on the channel, Tesla has not yet applied for that California driverless permit. And of course, we have the other cities like Vegas and Phoenix and a few in Florida that Tesla has said officially they'll be launching in. Moving down to Zone 2, you'll see those officially announced cities and how many days Tesla has left to launch in those cities to meet its own timelines. You can click on the Hiring Watch List button right here to see all of the active listings where it plans to hire vehicle operators in new cities. And when you click on that button, you'll see these gray circles populate on the map to see where Tesla is planning to expand. Down in Zone 3, we have some more official information comparing Tesla to Waymo, and each of these different data points you can also click on to get more information. In Zone 4, you'll see the different active cities with the date of when Tesla launched the service in that city, and you'll see an active counter for how many days it's been operating. And one of my favorite parts of the dashboard is the NHTSA incident data reported in a visually appealing and easy to understand way. So no more fooling around with those CSV files. This actually shares more important information, like 5 out of Tesla's 15 incidents were when the Tesla vehicle was stopped, meaning Tesla was not at fault. And further, it'll break down the pre-crash movement of the Tesla vehicle, the injury severity for each incident, and the geography in which the incident happened. And what's great about this is this dashboard will largely update itself. And yes, I vibe coded this with Perplexity Computer, who happens to be the sponsor of this video. And many of you know I've been using Perplexity Computer since the day it came out. And so when they offered to sponsor the channel, it was incredibly exciting. I'll just say it, I'd love to work with them on a long-term basis. So if you want to support the channel, trying out Perplexity Computer and all of this agentic AI would be an awesome way to support the channel. So I told Computer I wanted a Bloomberg terminal style layout in a Tesla aesthetic, the most important robotaxi metrics, plus a head-to-head comparison with Waymo. It then broke that goal into different tasks, it spun up specialized agents in parallel, and just started building. And listen, I'm not a developer by any stretch. I cannot write in React, but I can give clear instructions, and that's the whole point. Perplexity Computer does the actual work, I just guide and correct. Even down to very small details, like me saying I wanted these orange circles to pulse, I wanted this red outline around the brief me section, which by the way is an active button you can click to see a change log for the past 5 days of all the progress Tesla has made, and it'll give you an update on the most recent 48 hours of Tesla news. And if you haven't used Computer before, prepare to have your mind blown. One example, originally when this Tesla vs Waymo section came back, you couldn't click on any of the info. So I just said verbally via dictation, hey, I'd like to be able to click on each of these numbers to give more information, and so folks can actually click through to the source. I then walk away from my setup for a few minutes, and Perplexity Computer runs the task in the background on its own, self-correcting itself by spinning up these sub-agents. And a few minutes later, I come back with the ability to click on these data points and see these pop-ups in the dashboard. The reality is that's just something I would have no idea how to do on my own. And Computer connects to hundreds of different services right out of the box. So for this dashboard, it's pulling live from a Google Sheet that I can manage on my own. Or I could set up cron jobs, which are automations, so the sheet will update itself. You may have seen the dashboards also pulling from the YouTube API to have my latest YouTube videos at the bottom. And zooming in on the full screen mode, you'll see the Tesla and NASDAQ prices also in real time. And so every night at a set time, Computer wakes itself up, refreshes the data, snapshots the changes, and redeploys to the site. So I set this up once, and now it'll just run on its own for as long as I want it to. And this same tool helped me research and source every number on the dashboard. Computer routes the work across multiple AI models in parallel, so while one agent was cross-checking Tesla's IR deck, another was pulling Waymo's latest blog posts. So Computer's not replacing me, at least not yet, but it's giving me a team of agents to do things that I can't do on my own, and it does them while I sleep or while I do anything else. So honestly guys, sponsor or not, I cannot recommend Perplexity Computer enough. This technology is going to have massive implications on our future, and I believe those that learn the technology early are going to benefit the most. So the link to this very dashboard will be below. It's electrified.pplx.app. And you can click this red Brief Me button and it'll start your own Perplexity Computer session. And again, you can save or bookmark this very dashboard that will be updated in real time, and it is optimized for mobile and desktop. So if you can't tell, I'm super excited about this one. I really hope you guys take a second to try this out for yourself. And as always, thank you for supporting the channel in this way. It might take a few seconds to load the first time you do it, but after that, it should be good. And share all the feedback you have because again, in the weeks ahead, I'll continue to build this out and update it. But this brings me back to the Cybercab deployment timeline conversation. In the last video, we talked about the challenges Tesla had getting FSD to work well on the Cybertruck. When I went back and did more research, got further into the weeds, it turns out we don't have any official information like I thought about exactly what the challenges were. But based on forums and comments and everything I could gather, it seems like the options are the rear wheel steer of the Cybertruck, the variable ratio steering of the Cybertruck, and of course the camera positioning on the vehicles and the overall vehicle dynamics. So all three were certainly a factor, but here's the thing, on the Cybercab, none of those challenges are actually going to apply. The Cybercab will not have rear wheel steering, which is also known as four-wheel steering. That's a very niche feature, usually for higher end vehicles or larger trucks, but that's something the Cybercab won't have. And then production variants of the Cybercab without a wheel and pedals obviously will not have a variable steering ratio in the traditional sense because there's no physical steering wheel at all, meaning the output controls on the Cybercab will all be done with AI and software. And we know the Cybercab is a front-wheel drive vehicle, so it will still likely use steer-by-wire, except those controls will be sent to the actuators that will actually turn the wheels on the front axle. And once again, all of that will be handled with AI and software. And sure, the camera placements on the Cybercab are different than the rest of the lineup, but it's going to be much closer to a vehicle like the Model 3, and so there will definitely be a season needed to retrain the models for the Cybercab build, but I was looking at it totally wrong. So what Tesla pulled off getting FSD on the Cybertruck was going to be far harder than getting FSD on the Cybercab. Said another way, if Tesla can figure out FSD for the Cybertruck and all those specialty features, then it should actually be relatively easy on the Cybercab. But before I share my new expected timeline for Cybercab deployment, I do want to touch on the unboxed method because FSD aside, obviously Tesla needs to work out the physical part of the Cybercab from a manufacturing standpoint. And I do really think Tesla moving to the ether loop gets slept on because it is that breakthrough that actually enables Tesla to do the unboxed manufacturing in the first place. If you need a quick refresher, Tesla took the traditional wiring system where you would run a ton of copper wires, sometimes all the way across the vehicle front to back, side to side, to connect all these different controllers that run things like the windows, the lights, the motors, and everything else. But now Tesla's ether loop is shifting that to a high-speed Ethernet ring around the car. Just think of it like a NASCAR racetrack circling the whole vehicle. Along that track, at different points, you still have those controllers. The older, low-speed ones are still speaking their familiar CAN bus language, but Tesla then packages that traffic and sends it over the faster gigabit Ethernet backbone. And so the high-performance stuff, things like steer-by-wire, motor controls, and FSD-related traffic, talks natively on this new network. And here's the cool part, because it's a closed loop system running around the car in both directions, you get redundancy built in. So if something happens, a signal gets lost or a wire gets cut, that message will still make it to the end destination because it's running around the car in two directions. And doing it this way eliminates a massive amount of wiring from the vehicle. We're talking somewhere around 70% less wiring than a Model 3, from about 490 wires down to around 155 on the Cybertruck, even though the number of connection points actually went up. So it's cheaper, it's lighter, it's way simpler to manufacture, and it's actually the key reason Tesla's unboxed manufacturing process is possible. So we know with the unboxed method, you have these big modules, the front end, the rear end, the doors, and whatever else. Each one has its own short segment of that ether loop harness. So when you bring all the modules together and snap them into place, kind of like Legos, that full ring just connects connects, and then you're off to the races. No more fighting with giant harnesses that have to snake through the entire car. And as always, guys, there really is so much to the story. Once you start getting into this technology, you realize how many other things it actually impacts and changes. Because Tesla's running this system on 48 volts now, it means they can now run both power and data over that ether loop system, which on its own unlocks a whole host of new features. Tesla can now integrate the audio system and the UI controls directly into the main network instead of needing their own separate heavy wiring harnesses. And things like active road noise cancellation and those features can be carried out on the ether loop. But most critically of all, if we assume that Tesla is indeed running FSD commands and video feeds from the cameras to the AI computer over that ether loop network, which I think is a pretty safe assumption, it obviously needs to have redundancy built in, it needs to have very minimal latency, and it needs to be reliable. And you guessed it, it is. The gigabit Ethernet can run somewhere around 200 times faster than the older CAN bus wiring, with millisecond type latency, which also just happens to open up a ton of headroom for Tesla in the future to continue building on and adding on to that system. And as I said, there's even more to the story. So over time, Tesla has been working on building all of these controllers in-house, vertically integrating them. So instead of Tesla doing what most other automakers do, working with hundreds of different suppliers, each with their own software and language for these vehicle controllers, Tesla has been building exactly what it needs on its own. And they're actually making these controllers more general purpose in this case and more software defined. That's because Tesla wants to be able to control multiple things with each controller: the headlights, the brakes, the windows, whatever else, using fewer unique controllers. But in the end, Tesla can have far more connections between everything because of how much data they can move around the ether loop. And so all this to say, it's a relatively new technology even for Tesla. Yes, they have it on the Cybertruck and likely on the Semi as well. But the Cybercab is going to benefit immensely from this architecture, given again, it has no rear steering, no traditional variable steering ratios, the camera placements are much closer to the rest of the fleet, and it's a purpose-built autonomous first design with no wheels or pedals. So my new stance is that whatever neural net training Tesla needs to do for the AI steering output, it's going to be far more straightforward than it was on the Cybertruck. And as some of you pointed out, it's also true that Cortex-2 is now online and has started running training workloads, as Tesla told us on the Q1 deck. So Cortex-1 was over 100,000 H100 equivalents, and Cortex-2 is going to be over 130,000 H100 equivalents. But the latter is still in the early ramp phase. So is Cortex-2 running frontier models, or is it just getting warmed up in a sense? We don't have that level of detail, but it's a fact that Tesla has likely materially more compute available now than it did when it was working on getting FSD on the Cybertruck. So given all of that, I now happen to believe that the deployment of the Cybercab will largely hinge on Tesla's risk tolerance. Meaning, from a technical standpoint, I think the Cybercab could be ready for deployment sometime in the coming weeks. Having received some clarification on the challenges of getting FSD on the Cybertruck, I now think Tesla is incredibly well positioned to have FSD ready for the Cybercab, and it really should be far more straightforward than what they had to deal with the Cybertruck. So given all of that, my new expectation for when we see a Cybercab on the Robotaxi network for a paid unsupervised ride will be sometime in July. That gives Tesla 3 full months from the start of production to validate the unboxed method, to ensure the safety and the tolerances and things like the ether loop are all working as expected reliably on all production units. And having clarified all of this, part of me does feel like it could be imminent even sooner than that, but I keep defaulting to Tesla has no reason to rush it. The Model Ys will work just fine on a small scale like it is now, and there's just no rational argument for why Tesla should rush it. And anytime over the next few months will be just fine in the long run. So in the weeks ahead, I myself will be watching with even more anticipation, now that I'm pretty confident confident porting FSD to the Cybercab is not going to be a challenge like it was on the Cybertruck. So my apologies for the false alarm on Monday. Hopefully through this process, you guys learned something new, but I am sure this will not be the last time I change my mind about something Tesla related. And before we move on, I found the chart from Tesla where they show they're now designing their own controllers. So the line is the percentage of Tesla designed controllers. Back with the Model S, it was only 20%. With the Cybertruck, they got up all the way to 85%. And for the next gen vehicle, the Cybercab is expected to be 100% designed in-house. And some of you will remember that Jim Farley interview he gave last year where he said they actually work with 150 different suppliers for these controllers, each of which has its own software and its own languages, and then Ford has to bring that all together in its vehicles. Whereas Tesla, for their Cybercab, has one supplier, and that supplier is Tesla. And even companies like Waymo, they're not developing their own controllers, and the companies they're sourcing vehicles from likely aren't either, at least not to the level Tesla is. So this all just works together to be part of the reason Tesla can actually offer a Cybercab for less than $30,000. So again, we might have to be patient when it comes to scaling this year, and I'm trying to keep those expectations low. But guys, truly, longer term, I still just don't see any way anybody else can compete with Tesla whenever that scale does arrive. Even if we are waiting until next year, no one is even close to being able to offer what Tesla can because they've been working on all of these technologies for a decade plus. Today, Joe Tetmeyer said over 70 Cybercabs at Giga Texas outbound lot today in 3 major areas and driving around. I think this is now the largest single gathering of Cybercabs I've observed. The daily production rate is still likely in the neighborhood of 5 to 15 per day, and I still think we're likely to see hundreds shipped off across the country for testing and validation, but I am now much more optimistic that the primary challenge for Tesla deploying Cybercab, whatever that ends up being, will not likely be getting FSD to work reliably on the Cybercab. And Tesla's not yet at the place where it'll start reporting on number of rides given per vehicle or per day or week or whatever metric, but that time will come eventually, and when it does, it'll be important to remember this statistic. Recently, Pony AI said reaching unit economics break-even in 2 Tier 1 Chinese cities demonstrates autonomous mobility is not only technically viable, but also economically sustainable at scale. And their break-even number per vehicle, if you look from a monthly perspective, is an average of 23 orders per vehicle per day. Said another way, 23 rides per vehicle per day. That's the number Pony AI needs to hit to be at roughly break even for its robotaxis. Now, of course, exactly how Pony AI defines its unit economics break even is going to be somewhat of a black box. But 23 rides per vehicle per day should be a number we store in the back of our minds for when Tesla starts reporting its data. I've said we should be cautious with all of these massive growth numbers for 1 month data for Tesla sales this year. Yes, they're certainly encouraging, but I'm still waiting to zoom out to see how we end up through 2 quarters, looking at the bigger picture. But something I do believe is signal. Roland said Giga Shanghai produced more cars than ever during the first 4 months of the year. And he shared this chart, so you can see through April, which is this blue box, that's the highest production level ever for Giga Shanghai. Not by a wide margin relative to 2024, but still the best ever and significantly ahead of 2025. But guys, as always, we have to have some perspective here. Remember, Q1 2025 was the changeover to the new Model Y and the new Model 3, and that bled into Q2. But I still think this is a meaningful way for Giga Shanghai to start the year. And as Elon would say, that's before FSD approved, and I would add to that both in China for that broader approval and largely across the EU. We actually already talked about this a few weeks ago, but Andre Thierig did say they announced a $250 million investment for the Giga Berlin cell factory. It'll enable 18 gigawatt hours of annual 4680 cell production and create more than 1,500 new jobs. Good news, during during challenging times for the German industry. And the reason this number matters is because from an annual perspective, that's likely to be enough sales for in the neighborhood of 240,000 vehicles, which means once it's up and running and hitting those levels, which might take a year plus, but whenever Giga Berlin gets there, they might be able to supply nearly 100% of vehicles produced there with its own in-house 4680s. And further, I think it's a great sign that Tesla feels very confident about where 4680 production is at this point, given that it's now exporting that manufacturing process, which, as far as we know, is likely to include DBE for both the anode and the cathode. This rendering you're seeing was created by not a Tesla app, but Tesla has patented a new trim clip to reduce rattles and vibrations in the car. Tesla's patent describes a new trim clip system that uses a soft vibration isolating layer between components. The patent says the design helps improve retention while also damping noise and vibration. I really have come to love Tesla's relentless innovation even with the smallest of details. A full-on patent for trim clips. The continuous improvement and attention to detail are unmatched. Drew Baglino just said, you know what, Heron Power is not enough. I'm going to fire up another startup focused on heat pumps. The startup is called Sadie Thermal Machines. Little is known about the company right now, but it appears to employ several Tesla alumni. Don't forget what Drew said in the past. We've learned a lot about how to make capable and reliable heat pumps that work in all environmental conditions and are excited about the idea of working on that problem one day. That problem being a heat pump that would handle both HVAC and water heating. He said making a heat pump for the home would be easier. It's way harder in a vehicle. It's so constrained on mass and volume and energy. So hopefully Drew can find success with this company, and then Tesla can acquire his company in a few years and finally bring that Tesla branded home HVAC system to market. Today, Waymo said we're expanding in Miami with Austin, Atlanta, Houston, and the Bay Area up next. Soon we'll cover 1,400 plus square miles across 11 cities. And yes, I plan to add this statistic to my Tesla Autonomy tracker. So rather than just showing the current biggest geofence for each company, we can also have the total square miles covered. Today on LinkedIn, Matt McClellan said Covenant Logistics is kicking off a 3-week demo of the Tesla Semi. We're running the 500-mile variant and keeping our day simple with a 200-mile round trip. More details coming soon. As of now, it's looking like I will have another interview upload coming this Sunday, so be on the lookout for that one. Tesla stock closed the day at $445.27, up 2.73%, while the NDX was up 1.04%. The volume was 4% above the average. And don't forget, if you have any interest in checking out Perplexity Computer, my link's in the description below. Then you can click that Brief Me button on the dashboard, and that will open up your own Perplexity Computer session, and you can go from there. Even if it's just for 1 month, I highly recommend you try building something on your own. If you haven't, I am very confident your mind will be blown. Hope you all have a wonderful day, and a huge thank you to all of my Patreon supporters.